Amazing. Stuns me every time. Gorgeous. Has anyone ever seen a murmuration in person?
Yes, it's insane.
Yes.
Oh, man, I haven't. It must be absolutely incredible.
Unfortunately, I've seen it mainly when I've been driving, and it's like, do I keep my eyes on the road or the sky? But it's like just the most epic dance ever.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, as Betsy said in the chat, who's leading? It's kind of an amazing example of nature's collaboration skills, nature's intuition skills, many skills. Welcome to episode. It's not episodes. Session. Fuck it, it's episodes. Welcome to episode 2 of Creative Quest, everybody. I hope you're doing well on this beautiful Tuesday. It has been a frankly delightful couple of days of weather here in the UK, and I hope that this last week for you has been filled with all sorts of wild and wonderful times. I have certainly I've had a great time personally, and it's I'm really looking forward to hearing how various different people in this group have been approaching rewilding over the last week. I'm aware that we have a few people joining us this week that weren't here last week for various reasons. So I'm just going to invite a couple of those people, well, all of those people, to just very quickly introduce themselves. It's just a name, where you're based. Doesn't need to be much more than that. You know, maybe what you do or what you're passionate about, anything like that. Literally just 20-30 seconds each, because this is a community and we're going to need to know who's in that community for it to be a community, because that word's bandied around a lot these days. And this isn't one of those fake, like, join our community written on the back of like a, pasta sauce jar. This is real community. Okay, so just on my screen, we're going to go to Maria first. Please unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria. I'm Portuguese, but I'm living in Berlin and working as a designer and photographer. Nice to meet everyone.
Amazing. Great to have you, Maria. I'm going to hand over to Harry. Oh, this one.
Hi, I'm Harry. I am based between Canterbury and Epping Forest in East London. And you can probably see I'm quite sweaty because I do dance and I'm a theatre student.
Great to have you here, Harry. Harry actually went to my old university. So it's great to have some UKC alumni in the house. I'm gonna hand over to Tony.
Hi everyone, my name is Tony. I'm based in London, and I'm the student experience coordinator at a new university. And some of my students are actually here as well, so you'll hear more from them.
Yeah, actually, Tony, it'd be great if you could just tell people here a little bit about LIS, because it is incredible. And there's a very clear reason why Tony and some of the students are here for the rest of this quest.
Yeah, happy to do that. So basically, we're a new university. We opened our doors to students this fall. And the whole idea is to base learning on interdisciplinary teaching and have problem-based learning. So students don't focus on one degree, but instead every semester we have a new problem. And then students have cycles of disciplines in which they analyze that problem from.
Pretty incredible. Honestly, I've been admiring LIS from afar, and it's great to have some of you in the house. Hopefully, we can learn from some of your interdisciplinary wisdom. Thank you, Tony. Belmiro, tell me if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Yeah, perfect. Portuguese as well, based in London, studying at LIS, doing a sustainability module this semester. Yeah, that's it basically.
Awesome. Great to have you, man. And Sam next.
Hi, everyone. All right, I literally just got to work. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a photographer, so I'm actually just in the studio now. yeah, this is my first session and my first quest, and I'm super stoked to see what comes of it and to meet some really awesome people.
Great to have you. Great to have you. Yeah, hopefully people that weren't here last week managed to watch the first session back, or log into the Notion or Slack. If you didn't, please do drop us a note, because we want to make sure you can use all of the platforms that we have that make this the thing it is. I'm going to pass to Mickey now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm from the London Interdisciplinary School as well, with Tony and Belle. I'm from Wales, but I'm living in London, and I am very excited. Yeah.
Amazing. Great to have you, Mickey. Okie dokie. Is there anybody that I have missed that was not here last week? Just going through the register in my mind. Was everyone here last week? I think so. Great. Well, welcome to session 2 of Creative Quests. This month we are all exploring rewilding together. This first week is just so much about casting the net as wide as possible. In any learning journey, there's going to be this period of not knowing that we all have to step into. And over the course of the last week, we have done that. We've mapped out some of our initial perceptions of what rewilding can mean. And we've expanded those perceptions in session 1, and hopefully in this first week of getting out into the world, using your theme as a lens to see the world through on walks around the places that you live. You've maybe thought about rewilding slightly differently, or begin to see things that maybe you have seen every day, but you maybe hadn't seen them in quite the same way that you did over the last week. And then, of course, you know, the research that you may have done on the internet or through chatting to people. The communal journal is absolutely thriving. I'm going to pull that up. For those of you that haven't logged into Notion yet, you really need to get on this, because it's incredible. The communal journal is literally thriving. We've now merged the 2 journals, because there was one for the 5 p.m. group, one for the 7 p.m. group. And for those that are new to us, there's some really kind of clear tips on how to quest throughout this next month, exploring rewilding together. Questing can manifest in all sorts of forms, whether it's digital, artistic, intellectual, audiovisual, experiential. There's so many different types of ways to learn and experience the thing that we're exploring together. So make sure you dive in here. Yeah, this is just full of incredible stuff. None of us have any excuses to be bored or lacking inspiration in the world of rewilding. And this is just after 1 week. We've got music, we've got art stuff, we've got this for a start. This is just co-created ideas that people have put in of ways that we can explore rewilding over a month. Look how long that is. It literally keeps going. All ideas created by people in this group. Yeah, there's tons. Music, books, magazines. It's incredible. And if you haven't submitted your details to us yet in the form that we asked for in some of those opening emails, Tiz can link that in the chat. Please do fill out that form, because we've got a club directory up on Notion, which has the details of everybody on the quest that fills out the form. You know, where they're based, what they're into, what they're curious about, what they want to explore in future, what practices they have, and how to connect with them on social media. This is an amazing resource to have. You could potentially find a new collaborator within this club directory. You know, what you're curious about might match up with somebody else's creative practice. Doesn't even necessarily need to be about rewilding. You might be curious about exploring animation. We might have an animator in this group or the other group. You never know. So please do get in there and learn stuff about your fellow questers. Cool. We're going to jump into breakout rooms for 10 minutes. And I'd just like everybody to chat about the last week, you know, what's come up through the process of researching and experiencing rewilding. Remember, this is an invitation to bring these themes into your life. These sessions each week are where our paths converge, and we'll be exploring the theme through a different lens, through a different kind of angle each week. But really, so much of what this is about inviting the theme into your life beyond these sessions. That's where the real magic is going to happen. So yeah, we're going to jump into breakout rooms. If you're brand new and you haven't had a huge amount of time to explore rewilding yet, don't worry. You can just use this next 10 minutes to unpack some initial thoughts. So yeah, 10 minutes in the breakout rooms, and then we'll come back. Great. I don't know who this, it's Anna Maria's note taker. Okay, Tiz, I'm going to jump into
Uh-oh, pressure's on now.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's all good.
But please continue your conversation.
We were just connecting to each other, so to where we're located.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so that's where we are. So it's still, the sun just started shining in our world this past week. So finally, I can see the stars. Like yesterday, the Big Dipper and Orion. I hadn't seen the stars in ages, and a little sliver of the moon. So I was enjoying that this week very much.
I'm so envious.
Yeah. You can never see the stars in the cities, right? Like it's just so foggy and it's impossible.
Yeah, I haven't seen the stars it's probably been years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's sad. Like you'll see, you know, planets sometimes because they'll shine through, but I'm dripping with envy, Raquel. But it has been, of course, today it's snowing again. Oh well. But 2 days ago it was gorgeous. I ended up opening all of the windows of my house, like airing everything out. It was so nice. Been enjoying that. But other rewild things, they've been kind of small, but like amazing. Like I was on a hike yesterday. I try to go on a hike once a week. And I tried just using different senses. And I started hearing it's not really a forest, but there are trees around, but they were creaking. Like it sounded like creaky floorboards, which of course kind of makes sense, but I don't know that I've ever heard that sound outside of you know, wood as a medium rather than just like yeah. So to hear the trees creaking was kind of wild, and I ended up like craning my neck for the majority of the hike and taking in different perspective. It was lovely.
Yeah. Did you look straight up through the trees?
Yeah.
You know, because like when you look straight up, it's like, whoa.
Totally wild. I had a moment too where like looking at the trees, because I was looking up, like there's no up or down really, right? And trees and how they like end up going into you know, branches and then even smaller branches. It reminded me so much of our blood. And actually like the design, like I think of it as biomimicry, but it's not because it's biology mimicking biology, but just like, I don't know, the design being the same essentially for us and trees there's something there that just kind of sat with me for a little bit.
Nice. What about you, Nora?
I've also been like on walks because I live in a small town, like for the time being here in Italy. So there's like the countryside like all around it. So I just enjoy like taking like little walks, kind of like being more aware of my surroundings. And the sunset is very beautiful. I love going there just before sunset, so I can just stop and like, you know, take in everything and breathe. And I just find it very, very calming. I don't get to do that too much in London, so it's nice to have that as well. And I've also been more mindful of the way like people use the word like wild, which is the core of like rewilding, right? So people use the word wild as if it's a synonym of like crazy. Oh, that's wild. Oh, like the fact that you did that is wild. Like it's weird. But I'm paying attention.
I love the representation.
Maybe sometime we can like take a picture of our sunsets all the same on one day and just compare.
Oh, that'll be nice.
That's a beautiful project.
Yeah. In Germany, people like to hike. If you're a good German, you're walking. So we're always a little sarcastic, but anyway, there's actually really a lot of nice paths and trails to hike here, and we have a dog, so going out in nature and hiking, that's part of my sanity, or has been, and that was part of my savior in the pandemic. My girlfriend and I would always meet, and we would go along the river, and every day you'd see different animals, sometimes deer, sometimes falcons and stuff. But we moved recently to a new house just about 7 months ago, and it was pretty wild here. Like it was an older guy, and he hadn't done much gardening, or he'd let things go wild. And we thought we were just going to clean out a little bit, but the more we got in there, the more it was really wild. Like it wasn't, it was just a mishmash of stuff. And so we started cleaning up, and before we cleaned it up so much, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's bare. It's not bare, but it feels bare. And so I was thinking, so part of what I was thinking, and we plan on replanting some trees and redoing some stuff, because it was just random. It was more mess. Like it was more messy than it was normal nature stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So actually I was out in my garden thinking, how do I prepare the space to recreate maybe some things, so I was doing that this week. A little bit.
I love that. I just placed an order for some seeds last night. So I'm starting to think through, I'm renting and probably moving too. So like container gardening is the only thing that really makes sense, because I'm going to want to take it with me.
Yeah.
But like expanding beyond what I did last year, but also as part of that, I got some wildflowers, some deer resistant wildflowers to do some, to sprinkle around my neighborhood, but also my yard selfishly.
Yeah.
It's
nice.
Like, and blueberries. I'm super excited about that, because I eat so many blueberries, but they come in plastic, and I try to be low waste. And there's just no other way for me to get them. But with plants, they're like great. It's like edible landscaping too. And they're pretty cold hardy. So hopefully they won't die too soon. But I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
Permaculture too is something you might be really familiar with, Raquel, but it just kind of accounts for like no-till, like more environmentally friendly, like design for landscaping, that naturally kind of complement each other. So it takes into account like what is native to your area, but also like how do they like support one another within like the micro ecosystem of your own garden. There's some really cool classes and stuff online.
Maybe I should check that. That's one thing, living in a different, like I knew how to do that back when I was in the States, but here to figure out how to do that, so everything's a little bit new, trying to figure it out in German too. But what I did notice when I was, cleaning a little area out, because like part of it is also going through old compost or things that were just thrown out there. So trying to take out the garbage, but then the stuff that might be good, how do you put that back in? But there was one section with all these different hazelnut and walnut shells, like loads of them. And at first I'm like, oh, he dumped it here. But then I'm like, well, maybe there's a squirrel that comes here and eats walnuts and acorns in this spot. So I gotta start paying attention. Maybe he did dumb things, or maybe this is just where the squirrel brought things. I don't know.
I like the second option better.
Yeah, I do too.
You know.
But also they're really good for dyes. Walnut casings are good for natural dyes.
Oh, right.
Oh gosh, I don't know about that. So
it could inspire, I don't know, maybe Betsy has some ideas about like textile art. Yeah. No, I was just reading.
In Italy, there's some beautiful, I bet it's like a whole different feeling with nature than even in London, huh?
Yeah, it's like the complete opposite. Because I don't live in the city here. So like everything around me is nature basically. And there's actually like a region close to my hometown that's actually well known for like walnuts and hazelnuts. So they make their own like, how do you call them? Like spreads.
Yeah.
So they're just so yummy. I love it. I just love it here. But also like it's a small town type of thing. So the lifestyle is very slow. Like there's not much happening. So, you know, it's literally complete opposites.
You know, Nora, if you come across some really good recipes that are kind of using some of this stuff, you should let us know.
Yeah, I will. I'll write that down.
Yeah, because I am especially from the local areas, it sounds really nice.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking when you were talking, Nora, about, you know, wanting to get out of London because you were so stressed, I was like, well, stress, like that doesn't translate in Italy. Like they don't experience stress, but there's something there too, like the wild, like innate nature of areas and cultures is so drastically different. So it's almost like you're rewilding yourself to the Italian approach. Like,
yeah,
shouldn't we all?
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised here, and then I moved to London to go and study. So like being in London, I kind of like forgot how it felt like being in the Italian environment and just like the lifestyle, the culture, as you said. And I just really needed to kind of like rebalance, you know, and enjoy. But yeah, London is just like so hectic, and you're from New York, you said, so I guess that's like 10 times.
It's very much the same as London.
Yeah.
New Yorkers would like to think that it's more intense, but it's not. It's the same.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's intense in itself. I don't know about Germany. Like how is it over there?
I was gonna say it depends probably on where you live.
Right.
But I do feel like there's a certain quality of life here that people, you know, a little bit, you know, like taking time to, you know, walk or take hikes or be out in nature, be outside. That's very much a part of the culture in general, you know, here. Or like if someone takes time off or vacation, like people tend to try to respect that time, you know, and don't take that time. So like those, you see a little bit more of that, you know, compartmentalized, or, you know, if the sun's out or people are outside, or, you know, people tend to be outside, you know, a little bit more in general, you know, so that
Germany does strike me as like a good balance. Like it's like the trains are always on time, right? Like the
mainly. I mean, the Germans would say not, but
yeah.
I think their expectations are high.
but it is that balance, like you're wholly focused on rest when it's time to rest, but also like there is a reputation for efficiency and you know work when it's work time.
It's interesting. Like I was thinking about the environment, because this is about rewilding and stuff like that. So I think there are a lot of initiatives that pay attention to that. And at the same time, I heard there were some places where they're cutting down a lot of trees, but there was a lot of trees that got lost because of the beetles. And so I think, you know, there's that, you know, so it's interesting, like where are the pockets that they pay attention to, bringing nature and making, you know, where are they building houses and where are they protecting nature? You know, that's probably also in New York and Italy too. I think that's really interesting to pay attention to. Yeah, I think our time is almost up. Tiz, how are you? Well, you have 30 seconds to say something.
I've been enjoying the sun here in London quite a lot because it's very unusual. In fact, I had my hat because here I get the sun straight to my face, like around 3 p.m. So I have to have my hat at hand because if not, I cannot see, I cannot do anything. I also have this, oh, you cannot see them, but some shades that I paste on the window.
We're gonna get cut off.
Okay, great. Was there any reflections that anybody wanted to share back to the group from over the last week? Would love to snoop on a couple of conversations.
I can say briefly something.
Yes, please.
I mean, in our group, it seems like taking walks in nature, or being in nature, taking walks was a big part of our week. But also in our group, there was some talk about, the use, paying attention to the use of the word wild when people are talking about what does wild mean? What does that mean? And what else? And ideas in terms of planting and seeds and things that can be done in the garden or on a balcony. And we also talked about recipes, food, and how we can take some of what's in nature, maybe learn from local recipes in people's communities might be nice to share with each other.
Nice, yeah, some lovely ideas. Foraging, maybe a fun one. Thank you, Raquel. Anybody else want to share any little bits of questing from their week? Bullweed, anybody?
I want to just share what we talked about a little bit, because we had two people who were new, but nevertheless we just had this. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, but you had this, perhaps you should tell the story about your balcony, because that was really what sort of.
Oh yeah, it was me, Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maria.
So, I'm sorry, wait, before Maria tells the story, what was fascinating to me about it is, and she's not going to tell this part because I won't shut up, is she started by saying, I really didn't do very much. I really didn't do anything, as if there's like a measure, there's a right amount, there's a right thing, and then said something, and then this came up. So please.
Yeah, so I really didn't do much over the week, but yeah, so I was telling this story that so bear in mind I live in the center of Berlin. I forgot to add that to the beginning, so it's not like in a wild place, but so sometimes I feed birds in my balcony, that like all kinds of like small birds come to my balcony. And one day, just out of the blue, like a hawk just appeared, and to me it was just completely a surprise. I wasn't expecting that. And I was telling this story in the sense of I was researching about rewilding, and I was thinking, okay, I was trying, of course, to let the hawk would go away, but I was thinking nature would say, okay, the hawk comes to my balcony because they see little birds being fed every day, so they come to eat them because they also need to eat. And I was asking the group, well, what is the right thing to do, to let it be or prevent it? Well, I prevented it at the time, and I think I will still do it again. But yeah, it was the story that I guess initiated our conversation about rewilding.
It was so human intervention, or kind of letting nature do its thing, or that interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. How did it feel to see a hawk land on your balcony?
I was just in pure shock because I just saw a big bird coming, and I was like a big shadow, but I didn't really think of it because I'm in a city. Again, I'm in the middle of a city, so. And then I just went outside, and the hawk was just in my balcony looking at me, and the birds were kind of hiding. And yeah, my boyfriend said, okay, the hawk is definitely coming because she sees the birds are here every day and she needs to eat, so she comes to eat the birds. And yeah, it was a wild experience in the city, definitely.
The wild experience. Wow, I'm so glad that you shared that. That's incredible. Yeah, lots of us are in urban environments, which actually links very, very nicely to today's task. There is something that I would like you to do though. We might not have enough time to do it now, because I'd rather that we kind of got on with our task. Ooh. We put this in here. One of our former questers, Camille, she does all sorts of amazing nature focused art. She does kind of like really intricate tree drawings. Her project is called Project Roots, and we're actually going to, in a couple of weeks time, hopefully have her rock up in one of the sessions and tell us a bit more about her art. But last month she was actually exploring, because in month 2 of Creative Quest you can choose your own theme that you want to explore, and last month she chose her own theme of nature connection, to deepen her practice in the art work that she does. And she has made a nature connection survey to sort of test your nature connection levels. And we thought it would be interesting to maybe take this test now and then in 3-4 weeks time and see if anything's changed. So yeah, please do just just have that nature connection form up so you can maybe do it after the session. We won't do it now just because we'll run out of time. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. So yeah, for those of you that haven't done the initial survey, that is in the chat, so you can get into the club directory, and then we've got this other nature connection survey too. Great. Oh, look at this lovely full house. Okay, right, moving on. Who has heard of tiny forests? Great. Okay, awesome. Right, tiny forests are absolutely incredible. And they are a really amazing solution for all sorts of reasons, to nature connection, to sequestering carbon, all sorts, for nature deprived urban areas. And I'm going to share a video with you now, which tells you a bit about what tiny forests are, and then how we are going to explore them today. Apologies if we get any ads during this. YouTube sucks.
By the ivy and the hornbeam. We don't have a lot of space in Holland. We're very densely populated, but every neighborhood has about 200 square meters of barren land that we can convert into a natural forest. By planting trees in a very loose, nutritious soil, and by planting them really close together, they form this small ecosystem. And this really gives them an opportunity to grow old. And trees that grow old sequester a lot of carbon, they attract a lot of biodiversity.
They are paths and sinks for biodiversity. So in a nutshell, they are resilient bubbles of nature. For instance, microforest can be a path for foxes. And we don't always want foxes. There's also simply the fact that the microforest is alive, so it creates leaves and fruits, and it can be waste in urban areas.
I feel that if we plant a lot of these forests, we can mitigate the effects of climate change, but we cannot stop it because we need to stop emitting carbon altogether. But it can buy us time if we plant a lot of these forests. In my wildest dreams, the forest would thrive, kids would come here every day for outdoor classes, and the local community is very involved in the project. I think in practice it's always one or two of the three that go really well. If forests are very popular and a lot of kids play there, then biodiversity tends to do less well, because nature, well, they like the rest, they don't like a lot of screaming and playing. To mitigate climate change, we'll need hectares and hectares of forests. But what we can do is educate a generation of kids to learn how to restore forests and teach them so they can go and plant bigger forests when they grow up.
So yeah, amazing method that, you know, has so many brilliant upsides, as we heard from that video, whether it is bringing nature connection to urban deprived areas, especially for young kids that, you know, that don't even have any, you know, parks near them necessarily, or the parks they do have are really just flat, green, quite knackered space. You know, there's great to see. I mean, there's some in London where, you know, outdoor schooling is happening. They're really good at blocking noise pollution, and obviously the kind of the carbon sequestering kind of elements too. And it's amazing, I think, when you think of these as a model for biodiversity thriving, how that can happen in such a small, cramped space like a city. So Tiz and I have been researching these tiny forests, or Miyawaki forests, over the last week, and we began to notice how they could be a really good model for how we can let our creativity thrive in often cramped environments. You know, our lives can really be like a busy city. You know, there's noise happening, there's time commitments that we have to fit in. It's super busy all the time. It's work, it's family, it's friends, and it doesn't necessarily leave us a huge amount of time to commit to things like exploring our creativity, or taking on new learning projects, or educating ourselves, or growing in certain ways, because that stuff takes time. But we thought, what if we tried to adopt a tiny forest type of approach and actually broke down what makes a tiny forest actually grow and become a really rich, biodiverse ecosystem? What if we could apply that to being creative? So today we are going to be designing our own micro forests. And Tiz has worked on some fabulous illustrations. Look at that, before and after, literally just in 18 months that grew. How amazing is that? So yeah, next slide please, Tiz. So we have all, so me and Tiz over the last week have broken down the 5 stages of growing preparing and growing a tiny forest. And we've likened each one of these stages to a kind of a creative growth process, I suppose, is a way of thinking about it. Yeah, Tiz absolutely smashed the illustrations. So you're going to need some pens and paper for this one, because you're going to need to kind of follow out and sketch the little sketch you're seeing in front of you along the way. So go and grab pen and paper, maybe a bit bigger, A4 or A3 if you've had it. A little notebook might be a bit tough. Bigger piece of paper the better for this. Awesome. I wish there was a way to see people when the screens are being shared. I can do gallery. Okie dokie. Tiz, would you mind just stopping sharing for us just a second? Great. Let me just get this up. Okay, so there's 5 steps to this, right? There's the intention to build a tiny forest to begin with, and then we're going to be preparing the soil that we're going to plant our saplings in, and then we're going to actually choose the trees that we want to plant. And then we're going to go into a kind of an incubation stage, which is all about just kind of nurturing and letting things happen. And then we're just going to be into maintenance, the last stage. And then hopefully at that point, each of us has a model for what our own creative tiny forests can look like. This is a total experiment. We don't know if this is quite going to work, but there's some really nice parallels in here. So as always, please consider yourselves willing guinea pigs. Okay, so we are going to start with the very first step, which makes the most sense. And the very first step is to create an intention for what you want your forest to be. Okay, so I want you to think about, a tiny forest isn't going to grow itself, basically. These are incredible biodiverse ecosystems, but they are, as you can see from that video, they're planned. Those forests don't just sprig up out of their own will. They are planted, they are nurtured, they are experimented with by human beings until the forest gets to a point where it can manage itself. But that is quite a process. You have to make space and time to commit to it, much like you do with your sense of creativity or whatever kind of growth that you want to take yourself on. Good thing for you all is that you have already started this process of growing your own tiny forest simply by signing up to Creative Quests. You have given yourself permission to step into a new way of seeing the world. You've listened to your intuition that you want to do something different, break free from the kind of routines and norms that you might be in, and meet some new people. And in researching rewilding over the last couple of weeks, we came across a really interesting New York Times article by a journalist called Clive Thompson. And the article is called Rewilding Your Attention. And it was just so likened to the Creative Quest process that it really kind of reframed the way that I saw this whole process. He says that instead of crowding your attention with what's already going viral, focus on the weird stuff. Hunt down idiosyncratic posts and videos that people are publishing, oftentimes in tiny niche audiences. It's decidedly unviral culture, but it's more likely to plant in your mind the seed of a rare and new idea. And if that is not the Creative Quest process, I literally don't know what is. So what I want you to think about, so we're gonna ask you questions for each of these stages. So sketch out what you see in front of you here on your piece of paper. And in this, and I want, where Tiz has written up the top here, Forest of, I want you to think about what were your intentions to signing up to Creative Quest. There's, you know, everyone has their own reasons of joining this. Why did you carve this time out for yourself, and what do you hope to gain? And from that, I would like you to give your forest a name. What is your forest of? Is it a forest of creativity? Is it a forest of imagination? Is it a forest of community? Forest of bravery? You know, what does this process of rewilding yourself through Creative Quests mean to you? What is your intention for planting this tiny forest? We'll give you a couple of minutes on that. in these diagrams, we're going to sort of suggest where you can write your answers to these. But if you want to kind of do it more like a figure, you know, draw a little line off that space and write it on a separate piece of paper, maybe you can also do that, because this is going to fill up with little sketches and words too. So it might get a little bit busy, but I guess they are thick, tiny forests after all. So I guess maybe it's supposed to be busy. Awesome. How are people doing on section 1 there? Section 0. Feel free to unmute yourselves, by the way. It's nice just to hear people sort of rustling around a bit.
Yeah, so Sam, this is the first bit of the forest, right? Or is this like the whole forest, the intention?
This is your reason for sort of planting. This is just the reason for planting the forest, you know. So if you're thinking of like, you know, what are you growing a forest of? You know, is this making space for your creativity? Is it a creative forest? Is it an imagination forest? Is it, yeah, it's the change that you want to see, the growth that you want to have, basically.
Right, I got you. Are we adding more to this after intention, is what I'm asking?
There's 4 more steps after this, yeah.
Six.
Awesome. Right, we're going to move on to the next part of this now. Awesome. Okay, so hopefully you have a title now for what this forest is that you are planting. If you hear me call it Forest of Creativity throughout this, that's just because that's what mine is, and you know, we're on creative quests after all. Okay, so for a tiny forest to grow in the fast, biodiverse way that it's supposed to, as we saw in the video, the soil conditions need to be right. This requires intervention and actually preparing the soil so it's loose, wet, and filled with microbe-rich biomasses. This means that different kind of fungal networks and roots can grow really, really easily. So what does this mean for our forest or your forests of whatever they represent to you? Well, much like an actual forest, to spur wild creativity, we need to disrupt the place that it grows from and create the conditions from which growth, ideas, imagination can flourish. Very often we wait for creativity to come to us, but we've set our intentions now. We've set out the space, even if it's the size of a tennis court, to fit into our busy lives. We have created the intention and we've created the space. So we need to actually prepare for what it means to grow this forest. So yeah, often we wait for creativity to come to us as opposed to making the conditions right for our creativity to flourish. So I want you to answer 2 questions here that you can put into the under soil bit of your tiny forest that you've got there. And you can either do this as, you could just do this in words, or you could do it as prose, sentences, anything. But begin to sort of write in some details and maybe some just kind of churn up the soil a bit in your kind of illustration of this too. So I want you to think about what nutrients represents to you creatively, or in whatever you're trying to grow. What does nutrients represent? So if you are thinking about creativity, maybe you need quietness for your creativity to flourish, or maybe you're the opposite and you need lots of stimulation for your creativity to flourish. So I want you to think about that, and then I want you to think about what elements could create those conditions. So if quietness is a nutrient that you need, what could you do to create quietness in your life? Is it making time to be off screens, or could it be for meditation? And if you need lots of stimulation, maybe it can mean subscribing to loads of inspiring newsletters, or making sure that you go to loads of exhibitions. What does nutrients look like in your forest, your tiny forest?
Thanks, Sam. The examples are helpful. I 100% missed that this was a metaphor.
Yeah. It's all metaphorical. So throughout this, we're going to be giving you the like actual, this is how the forest works. This is how you could interpret it in terms of creativity. What does it represent to you? I mean, maybe soil is what you need for creativity. I don't know. Tiz, would you be able to put some music on, please?
Absolutely. Let me just.
There's a playlist in the chat. In the Zoom chat.
Can you hear the music?
Yep, perfect. Do you want to go back onto the
Yeah.
onto the illustrations? There we go. Perfect. Okay. Move on to the next part of this forest planting process. Did you have the slides? Oh, there's.
Got it. I'll just do it again. Sorry, guys.
No worries. It's so annoying that you can't share music from one computer and visuals from another. It's crazy. So the next section of this is planting. So when you're designing a tiny forest, it's important to have a wide range of saplings, most of which need to be native to the lands that they're being planted on. In a tiny forest in the size of a tennis court, there's around 60 different tree species that are all planted and all chosen to complement, not compete with each other. So if we think about this in terms of our creativity, it's important to think about the purpose of the trees that we're planting. For a forest to grow, you'll need all sorts of different plants for different reasons. Some flowers will grow to attract bees and butterflies. Some plants will grow fruit and attract birds and other wildlife. And some will simply provide shade and shelter. All of these things are really, really important to the thriving ecosystem that we are trying to design for ourselves. But you also need to grow different trees at different levels. Okay, so there's 4 different types of trees that get planted in a tiny forest. In the smallest, on the far right there, you have the shrub layer. The next to that, you have the sub-tree layer. After that, you have the tree layer. And on top of that, you have the canopy layer. So what I want each of you to think about is what each of these different layers of tree can represent to you creatively. So I'm going to put this in the chat. Hopefully this doesn't lose its formatting. So the shrub layer is to represent small everyday acts that you can keep up to keep your creativity going, or your imagination, or whatever this is a forest of for you. Small everyday acts. So, you know, if it was creativity that you were looking at, maybe a small everyday act is morning pages, writing three morning pages in the morning. Or it could be that you I don't know, you arrange the plants in your room, something that's just easily achievable every day that you don't have to think too much about. So the next one up from that, the subtree layer, is about learning and skilling up. What could you kind of be doing as a longer term, but still kind of self learning, skilling up kind of practice? And then beyond that, the tree layer, what are some more public experiments that you some public experiments that you can actually put out there? They might not be the long-term main projects that you're working towards, but they're helping you get projects out there, getting your name out there, getting your confidence up. And then finally, the canopy layer. What are the bigger, longer term projects that you are really going to have to spend a lot of time cultivating for these projects to grow to the size that they need to be to stand tall above the rest of the layers there? So you've got each of those. You've got the shrub layer, subtree layer, tree layer, and canopy layer. And that's in the chat, what each of those things represent in growing your forest. So I'll give you a few minutes for that, for each of these. Yeah, and Tiz has just put an example of how that actually works in the Tiny Forest in the chat if you want to click and download that. It's only a small little file, but it's interesting seeing how all of these different trees play their role, and that you can't have, we think about it in terms of creativity, you can't have the big, massive canopy trees, the big projects, without the smaller stuff at the bottom, you know, with the shrub layer. I can try and play some of my music, but I have a feeling that it's just going to sound terrible because it's not being shared from my computer, but we can give it a go. How's it sound?
The music is not sounding from my side.
It's very faint.
Yeah.
I'll put it up. Is that better?
I don't hear
Very
it.
laggy.
Yeah, it's just coming in and out.
Tiz, do you want to just share from your side, but just keep it quite low?
Okay.
Is that possible?
Well, I'm sharing it now, but it's not working, I suppose.
Oh, you're sharing. Oh, you actually have it playing now. Okay, wow, yeah. It's definitely not coming through. Maybe, yeah, try resharing and click the sound button. There we go. Yeah, maybe just turn it down a tiny bit so I can chat as well. Oh, it's disappeared again. Oh God, gotta love the tech. Anyway, look, we're going to move on to the next. We can't wait for the music. We're going to move on to the next section. So yeah, section 3 is incubation. Having a bit of tech issues here, aren't we? Tiz, do you want to move to the next slide? There we go. Yeah, the music's not working out, I'm afraid, so we might just have to go without, unfortunately. If you want to put music on your side and be on mute, absolutely go for it. So the third section in our tiny forest is the incubation stage. So after the saplings have been planted in the rich soil that you've prepared so well, there is a period where not that much happens above the ground at all, but under the surface is a completely different story. Here, some of the most important work is being done. Fungal networks are growing at rapid paces. Root systems of the huge amount of different tree species are creating an incredibly strong mesh layer. And this strong foundation means that there'll be much quicker growth in the future. The forest doesn't appear to be growing, but it actually is. And I think you can really easily liken this to a creative process or any long-term learning growth process. We have the work that can be seen, the things that we share online, the things we tell our friends about, even the hours that we actually put into the project itself. But there's always a flip side to that, the unseen work happening, the work that's happening beneath the surface and is completely out of sight. And that is the work that you're doing on yourself as a human being to reach the places you want to get to. This does actually have a technical term of shadow work. There's a whole sort of field of research on that. Check it out if you're interested. For example, your long-term project might be to finish an art project or write a new curriculum or design an event. But to get to that point, you might have to do some shadow work, whether that's learning a new skill or working on your procrastination habit or bad timekeeping or imposter syndrome or all of the above. I know that I am particularly bad at this myself. I expect myself to have the answers and get frustrated when things take me longer than I want them to. But, you know, I think if we prepare ourselves for those situations, that we can actually be a lot more productive because we've done the work on ourselves. So the question that I want you to ask for this incubation layer is, what is the shadow work of cultivating your forest? You've set an intention for what you're growing. You've prepped the soil. You've even started planting trees for your future forest. But how are you going to keep cultivating a healthy spirit and mind along the way when there's no visible progress necessarily happening, especially to those looking in? And quite often it's other people's perceptions of where we're at are the things that really stress us out, because we know how much work we're doing, but other people don't see that. So yeah, what things are you going to do to keep cultivating a healthy mind and spirit along the journey of growing this forest? Remember, you can write this out in prose if you want to. It could even be a little bit poetic. Okay, last but not least, we have the maintenance section. So, good news, your forest is growing, but now you have to stick out the growth process. You've prepped the soil, you've set your intentions, you've planted trees that are native to your creativity, that serve all sorts of different purposes, and you have incubated the soil to make sure you know what to look out for and the habits that you need to keep up to make sure that this forest keeps growing and you can go the long haul. But you have to stick it out now. The sort of the maintenance part of keeping a tiny forest alive is, there's two elements to it. There's watering the forest. It needs a hell of a lot of water. Obviously, there's like 60 different species of trees packed incredibly densely into these spaces the size of tennis courts. So it needs a lot of water. But it also, you need to remove weeds from the ground. Basically, there's a point actually where the forests get so high and so thick that no sunlight actually even reaches the ground, and at that point the weeds stop growing because they need sunlight to grow. But until that point, until the cover is kind of, the canopy layer is thicker, you have to de-weed. For this last section, I want you to consider what watering looks like and what weeding looks like. So watering represents inspiration, research, connection, community, opportunities, things that are going to keep you going throughout this process of living a creative life. You know, living a creative life is difficult, much like growing a forest. It needs constant maintenance. What are the things that you personally need to keep going? It will be different for absolutely everybody. And then on the other side of that is what do you need to sort of be pulling out and constantly weeding, whether that's distractions, bad habits, or absolutely anything, things that get in the way that you can spot and remove easily. Once we get into this process of knowing our sort of bad signs and we can actually spot them, recognize them, we have a much better chance of weeding them out of our forests. So yeah, the last section of this, where you'll be drawing in your trees, watering and weeding, what do those two things represent? And you've got a few more minutes, 3 more minutes. Okay. Luckily, you have done all of these. You have now completed all of these processes, and the last one is really out of your control. Well, kind of out of your control. The last section of this is to simply let it grow, and that is how your forest of creativity, of imagination, whatever you decide your forest was of, will keep going through following these processes. If we're to follow the tiny forest method, this is what our creativity could look like if we follow those processes. And yeah, I'm interested to know what people decided their forests to be. Let us know in the chat. Forest of curiosity. Forest of useful beauty. Forest of history. Nice. Forest of energy and open. Forest of ideas. Wow. These are all forests that I want to have a ramble through. Forest of creativity and focus. Forest of C3. I don't know what C3 is. Raquel, what's C3? Oh, you're
connection, calm, and creativity.
Ah, there we go. Forest of abundance. Wow, this is amazing. Forest of creative living and future freedom. Love that. Incredible. I'd love to invite anybody to share any of their kind of, we've got time for 1 or 2 people to run through their, in fact, can we see some, is that if people got them drawn in front of them? I'd be interested to see. Oh, nice. Yeah, hold them up to the camera if you can. Let me get a little screenshot. Yeah, hold it up. Forests of, okay, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. I would love it if a couple of people here would love us, would love to hear you run through how you took your forest from intentions through to growth. Anybody feeling like they want to share?
I'm happy to. I'm just so excited. I dropped some notes in the chat. I was very confused initially, clearly, and didn't understand the extended metaphor. But ultimately, where I kind of landed was like thinking through almost like capstone projects of like what and what that structure could look like if I were to focus on creativity just as much as I do my career or other areas of my life. And so thinking through like what those could be, and in each year trying to do some sort of big project on like my career and industry that could be valuable for many reasons, but also a big one on like learning new skills, like doing a 100-day project or something, one that involves a community element, like who is it that did the scarf of the color of laughter, like something like that, right? Like that'll always just sit in my mind as such a great project. And then some sort of pro bono. I've been doing quite a bit of that lately, but also been sharing these through like a website. Like I need to get my portfolio back together. And so now I just have, the game plan for the next year. Should have done this over Christmas break because now everything is ready to go for the rest of the year.
Oh, well, I'm glad. It's never too late to get a game plan together. Excellent.
And baking it into things that I already do. Like I have like an annual admin / creative retreat day, but asking questions like this, just as I do, focused on like submitting expenses, right? Like
yeah.
we should do this as frequently as we ask and submit expenses. We should check in creatively.
I completely agree. Amazing. Thank you, Marion. Anybody else want to share their forest growth process?
I could talk a little bit about mine, maybe. So I guess mine is one big realization I had while I was writing stuff out was when we did the different types of trees, so like the canopy, the tree, the subtree, and the shrub. And I realized that, because one of the reasons I'm doing creative quests is to kind of focus on my own creativity rather than always working on others' stuff through my work. And I realized that I do a lot of like shrub and subtree stuff I have kind of nailed. So like skilling up and doing like general research on a daily basis. But I never really share anything that's my own stuff. And I put that under the like tree category. So exhibiting work and sharing more stuff on social media, like creative projects. I realized that's like the one that I really have never planted, to use a metaphor, or haven't done for many, many years. And I realized that that's like what's really lacking from my forest. And then thinking about the canopy, realizing that I want to have like a body of work and also develop some like ongoing collaborative relationships, and realizing that in the big scheme of things, those are actually two goals. So yeah, like dividing, because I know that I do like a lot of little bits and pieces here and there, but I always struggle to kind of take a step back and see like where it's all leading to. So actually dividing it into these like 4 heights or layers or kind of categories has actually been quite a useful exercise. And yeah, I realized that the exhibiting and sharing part for me is like the one that I really need to focus on. So yeah, thanks for that. It was helpful, very helpful.
Beautiful. That's I actually kind of hadn't considered that through people doing this, especially that part of it, that you might realize that there are levels in that which seem missing. Yeah, so that's a great realization, or a useful realization. Amazing. Welcoming any other just quick feedback on that before we get into some challenges for the week.
I can share something similar.
Sure.
And that's that drawing it out actually really helped me see that I haven't added the words yet, but lots of ideas here. But drawing out the canopy really helped me realize that I spend a lot of time down here in just the intention and the preparation. And I get super excited about things. And then I never really get to this really top part here that's like the flourishing, because I don't have systems in place to do the incubation and the maintenance. So drawing it out was really interesting to see it visually. And I really appreciate you breaking it down like that, because the goal is, to get to here and have everything flourish. And I spend a lot of time just getting excited about new things, and then getting excited about the next new thing and then the next new thing. So that was really helpful. Thank you.
Hey, brilliant. That's great to hear. I wish we could go through everybody's forest, but I'm so honestly just reading what each of you decided your different forests to be is inspiring in itself. Seriously. Yeah, would love if anyone wants to share any sort of deeper reflections, or maybe even some of the photos of their forests, please do so in the Slack. Mega thanks to Tiz for pulling together those amazing illustrations. She did an incredible job there. Very quickly, may I add, very quickly. Okay, so we have got some tasks for you for the week ahead. Some more specific ones, but then I'll kind of give you some general sort of ideas on where to be putting your quest energy this week. Okay, so you've got two tasks this week. Your first is called Nature is the Greatest Artist and You Are the Curator. This week, we want you to curate a nature-based exhibition. Don't worry, it's not as intimidating as it sounds. And collect 9 images from the natural world where nature is exhibiting its best artistic abilities. You can collect these images by taking photos, or you could step it up a level by illustrating what you see or painting what you see. It's up to you. Spend time exploring and noticing nature, and don't be afraid to be bold. So yeah, there are some themes and prompts to consider over your curatorial journey. Patterns in nature, color, life, death, perseverance in nature, the micro of nature, the small stuff that's hiding under logs, or the macro stuff that we can seek serious awe in. Humor, beauty. There's so many different ways that you could find inspiration for your exhibition. You might even just want to focus on one of these things. You might say, I'm just going to focus on life through nature, or I'm just going to focus on color through nature or patterns through nature, or you could do one for each of the 9. It's up to you. Some just very quick, small examples of nature doing its thing. Think of shadows, the incredible patterns that nature has, the textures that nature has, the colors that nature has. There's all sorts. So yeah, does that make sense? Ooh. Nature is the greatest artist. And next week we're gonna come out. We're gonna give you a Google folder to upload your images into, and we're gonna create a kind of an exhibition of everybody's different nature-based images from the next week. But you know, this is a way to get you to explore and to notice, focus on nature in a kind of in a different way for its beauty, to admire it. And then a smaller little challenge is to take a trip on the World Wide Web. We have found a random location generator, which Tiz can put in the chat. And we want you to generate a random location in the world through this link and look for rewilding, nature connection, and indigenous practices or concepts close to wherever that pin is dropped. Quite often, our research for these things can end up getting quite focused in the places that we are. The world is a big old place. And we thought we'd leave it to chance and see what people have. So our check-in for next week's session is going to be everybody doing a quick little check-in on the facts, the practices, or anything that they found out. So those are the 2 things. More generally, this next week, just keep exploring. Over the first week, you have hopefully cast your net really wide. This second week is still about going wide, but beginning to focus on the things that are beginning to sort of grab your attention a little bit deeper than others. See where that rabbit hole goes if you follow it. Pull the thread, see how it unravels. Yeah, and that is pretty much it. If you're sharing, please do use our hashtags Creative Quest and CQ Rewilding. We're at channel.12 on Instagram. And yeah, that is it for session 2. Thank you for coming and growing your forests with us. I've got some closing remarks here. I was going to play you a video, but
I want to say something really quickly about the generator. So it might be that you land in the middle of the ocean. So there won't be any culture-nature connection in the middle of the Atlantic, but just try it again until you get some land. And you can always try to look for a region. So if there's nothing specific where you land, try to look out.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, well remembered. Yeah, I'm going to leave you on some words from an amazing man called Nadim Pereira, who runs a urban bird watching club in London called Flock Together, which is for people of color and from underrepresented backgrounds, getting them out into nature, getting their communities out into nature and reclaiming nature as a space for their communities too. Please check out Flock Together. It is an absolutely amazing community. And this is actually an Instagram caption, but it was just amazing. He says, it was just around Christmas. He said, I mean, yeah, of course, spending all your hard-earned money on underappreciated Christmas presents is super fun, but have you ever seen a buzzard flying in the woods? In nature, nobody has to buy you a drink. No one has to stand in a queue. No one has to wear a mask. Nobody will look down on you if you're unemployed. And nobody has to be anything more than what they already are, no matter what they are. We're constantly estimated and valued by our ability to produce output in this life. And this is because we are told that we have to live. We identify too heavily with modern society, and thus huge pressures and thus amount a huge pressure on ourselves. The way we live is a breeding ground for mental health issues. We can offset this, even if it's just a little, when we understand that the trees you walk past every day love you for the way that you breathe. Birds don't demand you to turn up on the morning on the dot. Foxes won't show you anger if you take a 2-hour lunch. The woods won't charge you entry. Nature asks nothing of you. You can just be. We are all a part of the natural world before we are hired and given a salary. Identify with nature and identify where it's missing in your life. Big love to everybody reading. Big love to the flock, and one big love to the warm embrace of nature. Nadine Pereira. Mega words. So I'll leave you on that. And thank you for coming this week. Next week is our guest quester. We have an amazing person joining us next week. Randa Tahar is a TED talker. She does a lot of work in the area of biomimicry, which is using nature as kind of design solutions. And she's got an amazing workshop for us planned next week. We've got both groups in one session next week, and it's from 5:30 till 7:30 GMT. The clocks change in America this week, so you're going to be an hour off kilter with us. So please check out what time it is where you are. 5:30 till 7:30 UK time. Yeah, that's it. Big love, everybody. Keep questing. Stay wild this week. And yeah, please share back in the Slack what you're getting up to this week. Peace, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.